Hey, Twisted listeners, I'm Cindy,
And I'm Diva
and this is Twisted Listers, a podcast about murder.
and Liz.
And this is part 2 of Freeway Killers, a pretty good topic, if you ask me. I'm pretty into it. Lots of heavy hitters in this one. Lots of fucked up cases. Anything to talk about? We fucking talked for 10 minutes last time before we got to the
Oh
cases.
no.
I know.
I'm sorry, everyone.
But, we were talking about true crime. We weren't, like, fucking around, really.
It's true. It's true. We weren't talking on our therapy sessions, so
No.
you know which podcast I'm talking about.
Oh, we already shit talked my favorite murder. We can just go. We can just go with it.
We weren't going through therapy.
Yeah. Oh, on
Yeah.
that topic, I do have to tell everybody. I told Diva this earlier, but I had a woman tell me, it was so funny. I accused her of being a white feminist because she is. And to prove my point, she didn't mean to, but hilariously she did. She was like, "You look like a white woman to me, so like how can you call me a white feminist when you're a white woman?" And I was like, "Oh my god, this is so glorious." I laughed so hard because I was like, "You
That's
clearly
special. Yeah.
don't even know what you're talking about." But anyway,
It's great. It's great.
it
Yeah.
was a hilarious argument that like made my day kind of. So um
Fantastic.
yes, I love stuff like that. Anyway, that's just my little story about arguing with people on Instagram, which is like my favorite thing to do. So
I love
yeah.
it. I love it.
Yeah, you love that for me.
I'm obsessed with Lisk and this motherfucking guy. He's so giant with his weird toupee hair,
Oh
and I'm
my
obsessed with him.
god. Is it a toupee?
I don't know, but it looks like one.
Like, if
If
it's
it's not,
not,
it's styled like to look like a toupee.
yeah, absolutely. I don't
I'm
it's fucking
obsessed.
yeah,
So
it's
there's
pretty
just a lot
hilarious.
happening with true crime. We couldn't help but talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. Sucks about Carly Russell. I hope she gets the help she needs. That's really unfortunate
Mm.
that was, like, all a weird staged thing. But,
Oh, weird. Yeah.
yeah, that sucks. Hopefully she's okay. Anyway, thanks everybody for listening. Please like, rate, review. Somebody like answered something. We have like on our Spotify, there's like a Q&A and they like were like, "I loved this episode." And like, thank you for that. I didn't even know that was a thing because I am not fucking with it. But thanks for leaving such a cool little note on our podcast. We love you and we appreciate you. And that was really cool. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should I turn off my thing? We have a little delay.
Yes, let's turn off. Guys, we're trying to record in a new way that makes the sound better, but it's hard because the internet in my house is trash. And the walls in my house apparently are why? Because I have like plaster and lath, which
Mm,
is like internet cannot travel through it. So if I'm not like next to
interesting.
the fucking thing, the router, it like doesn't yeah. Anyway, I've learned
Yeah.
so much about the internet as a byproduct of trying to record this fucking podcast. So that's cool.
Amazing.
Anyway, I'm actively working on a Patreon. If you guys would like to join us, you'll be able to hear it soon. And I guess that's all we have to say right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, I went last time because you picked, so you go this time.
Highway murders. Okay.
Woo woo.
So this is the Freeway Phantom. I don't know about you, but I knew absolutely nothing about this going into it.
Okay.
And the fact that I knew nothing about it is like a testament to a huge part of what I'm going to talk about.
Oh,
Because
awesome.
it's wildly under discussed.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, and I got way too into it, and this got long, and I also listened to like a 12-part podcast for this. So I am what
Ooh,
you could say. You could say overprepared.
I love
So
that. No, I love it. That makes me happy.
I did like a small dissertation on this. Okay.
Nice.
So this happened in Washington, D.C. from 1971 to 72.
Okay.
We're just going to jump right in, and I want to do a disclaimer to say that this is very much like the alphabet murders that I did for my most recent Patreon.
Oh,
It is extremely similar.
okay. Good to
Um,
know.
yeah. So in April 1971, Carol Spinks, who was 13, was sent by her sister with $5 to a 7-Eleven, like just around the corner, to buy TV
Mm,
dinners for her family.
Okay.
She made it to the store to buy the TV dinners, but while walking the four blocks back to her house, she disappeared into thin air.
Just into thin air. Just gone.
Yep. And there's not a single sign of her on the route back. And insanely, she actually ran into her mom on the way, who was very strict that she was not to go out like in the evening at all by herself like that. So
Oh
her
my
mom literally
god.
like pulls over and like yells at her, and she's like, "I'm just gonna walk home." And she's like, "Okay, I'll see you at home, but like, fucking, this isn't cool, right?" And that's the
Oh
exchange they have.
no.
But she sees her like 2 blocks into a 4 block walk, so she's like, "Okay, fine, I'll see you at home. I'll yell at you later, right?"
Like, you're already
Um,
safe, it's fine, essentially.
yeah, but I'm
Mhm.
just gonna yell at you in the future about this, like,
Right.
but just go home. And she's like, okay, and she
Oh.
disappears.
Oh,
um, yeah.
that's horrible.
So I'll say right up front here too that Carol and the rest of the victims I'm going to talk about are all from the working class black neighborhood of Congress Heights,
Okay.
and for the most part, I think someone else came from a neighborhood called Lincoln Heights, but for the most part, they all lived within like the same neighborhood. Um, So Carol's body was found 6 days later on a grassy embankment adjacent to the I-295 freeway,
Mm,
also known as the Anacostia Freeway.
'kay.
Um, this is very gruesome. She had been kept alive for several days.
Oh, no.
She had been sexually assaulted. She had multiple different cuts to her face, neck, and hands.
Mm,
She had been beaten, and finally, she was strangled to death.
Jesus Christ, so that's fucking brutal as fuck.
Yes.
God
Um,
damn.
she had also been fed like oranges or some kind of citrus fruit in that time. Um, Oddly,
Fucking
she was
random.
also missing her yeah, she was also missing her shoes.
Okay.
Um, and police found foreign synthetic green fibers on her as well as foreign hair belonging to a black person, but not her.
Okay. That's fucking
So
weird.
yeah. So, in an experience that I'm sure was shared by the other victims that we'll talk about, when her family first reported her missing, the police said they couldn't do anything because it had to be 24 hours, even
So
though she's a child.
even though she's a fucking child, they've kind of stopped that bullshit, right? I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. I hope so. I mean, I listen to the podcast The Vanished a lot, and
Mhm.
I have heard that, like for recent cases.
That's fucking
um,
ridiculous. That's fucked up.
yeah, police like to find any excuse they can to like not do their job.
Yeah,
Um,
that's so true.
yeah. So 2 months after Carol was found in July '71, a body is found on the exact same embankment, 15 feet from where Carol had been found.
Wow.
Uh, yeah. This victim is identified as 16-year-old Darlenia Johnson. And after she went missing, her family got a call from an unknown man saying, "I killed your daughter," and just hanging up.
Wow. What the
Yeah.
fuck?
Police didn't take this call seriously and were like, "Oh, it's just a prank call." Getting
That's
mad at the police is going to be a theme here. Yeah.
Oh, cool. I love that. That's so great.
Yeah.
That makes me
You're
so
going to love it.
happy.
So insanely with Darlenia Johnson, her body was actually seen by motorists because this is like the grassy hill off the side of a freeway, right?
Okay. Mhm.
That's what like they're all found on that. So her body was seen by freeway drivers, tons of them, right, going past, and they repeatedly called and reported it constantly. So it wasn't like a horrible case where no one said anything. They all said shit, like tons of people.
Hmm.
And said, "Hey, there's a fucking body." And the cops actually didn't do anything about it for 5 days.
Why? What the fuck is going on?
They let her body sit out in the elements for 5 days, decomposing. And people who knew her like drove by and were like, "Huh, that's weird." And the stories they tell on the podcast are like wild, of like finding that out later that it was her, like made them feel sick and like all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, that's insane. That's insane that they just let her sit out there. Um, and fully visible to the public. So in that time, in the 5 days, a bunch of evidence was lost, and they were actually unable to determine a cause of death because she was more decomposed than she should have been.
Yeah, you fucking think? Jesus Christ, dude. The fuck?
Nine, yeah, really horrifying detail there.
Yes.
9 days after Darlenia is found, the body of 10-year-old Brenda Faye Crockett was found in an area nearby Highway 150.
Mm-hmm.
She had been sexually assaulted. She had bite marks, and she was strangled to death.
Jesus.
She was found wearing a scarf that was not hers,
Mm-hmm.
and her hair was wet, as if she had been in the shower or taken a bath or something recently.
Like right before she was
So it's
found?
yeah. So
That's
it's thought
weird.
that this killer may have tried to wash away evidence and then redress his victims, and then as he redressed them, either doesn't care or is purposefully doing things wrong or just getting things wrong.
Got it.
Um,
Okay. Okay.
yeah. So Brenda went on an errand to a local store for her mom and never returned home. Again, this is so much fucking like the alphabet murders.
Yeah, it's
I'm
crazy.
like, did this person move to Rochester or whatever that was? You know, like
Yeah.
it's very identical.
God damn.
So only an hour after she disappeared, um, an an hour after Brenda's gone, the
Mm-hmm.
phone rang at her house, and her 7-year-old sister picks it up. It's Brenda. She sounds distraught, and she's like kind of crying. She tells her sister, quote, "I'm in Virginia, and a white man snatched me up."
Oh my God.
Yep.
Dude.
She then told her that her abductor had called her a taxi to go home. But then she calls back 30 minutes later, and this weird haunting message. She goes, "Did my mother see me?" And the little sister's like, "What? No." And then she just goes quickly, as if she's in a hurry, "Well, I'll see you," and then hangs up.
Oh, that's so fucking sad. Like, who
Yeah.
knows what this little girl was being told? You know what I mean? Like, something obviously is going on
Yes.
there. Did
Yeah.
my
Her
mother
body.
see me?
Mhm.
That's so creepy and weird and horrible.
It's really creepy. It makes me think maybe that like she went by her house, or maybe she saw her mom, but her mom didn't see her,
Oh,
and didn't
God.
realize. Yeah.
Heartbreaking.
Her body was found the next morning in a very similar state to the rest of these girls. It's believed that this person's monster made this little girl call home. And again, this is an hour later. It's like right away.
Right
And
away.
it's
Yeah.
thought that and it's thought that he fed her false information to throw the police off their tracks or whatever, right? Like to just
Mhm.
create a false lead, because it's pretty universally agreed on that this killer is a black man, or killer of the killers. If you believe there's plural, at least one of them is a black man, because the hairs of this unknown black person are found continually on the girls and in their hands.
Gotcha.
Um, and there's also assorted witness statements about seeing either a black man or a black and a white man,
So
a
you think
duo.
she
Yeah,
Oh, okay, 'cause I was gonna say, like, do you think that the killer made her call and lie to, like, throw them off the
yeah,
trail kinda thing? Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So here, say a wrong state and say that I'm white, right?
I love that you
But
picked the
again,
one that's not fucking solved. Of course.
of course,
Of
yes.
course.
Um, but yeah, the killer is thought to be either a single black man or a group involving a black and a white man. So that's like kind of the agreed upon options here.
Okay.
So October 1971, 12-year-old Nana Moshe Yates disappeared on a quick run to the grocery store, a literal block from her home,
God damn it.
within eyesight of her house, to buy a bag of sugar and a few other things.
And also
Only
12 is
two,
where you
yeah,
start to
yeah,
feel like that's okay to do
yeah,
that. Like, that's a fair
yeah.
age to do that.
Totally. And, these, not that we would victim blame if this was not the case, but in these cases,
No.
all of these families are actually like super, super responsible, and like told none of these girls also would have, their family said they would never have gotten to a car with a stranger. Like they were super safety minded.
Right.
And so these are abductions. Like someone is pulling a gun on them or someone is forcing them
This is
in.
like a bold ass,
Um,
like, midday abduction
yes.
kinda thing. Yeah. That's what it sounds
Yes.
like. Yeah.
Nana Moshe's case is insane because only 2 hours after she's uh, with the sugar, her body, still warm, was
Oh.
found really pretty close by.
God damn, dude. That is
Yep.
crazy.
She had been sexually assaulted and she had been strangled so brutally that her esophagus was crushed.
That's just what the fuck?
Yeah. Uh,
Oh,
Semen,
yeah.
so forensic evidence was found on her body from the sexual assault.
Okay.
And it's thought she was abducted from the Safeway parking lot before she started her walk home, because they found that bag of sugar like cast aside in the parking lot as if she dropped it.
Okay, yeah. So that's where she was
It's
taken.
off. Yeah, it's often the question is often posed like, why the fuck did no one see anything? Why did no one witness abductions? Although, like I said, there were kind of assorted reports of some of these, but they're always like kind of discounted or they're always kind of like questioned.
Right.
But it's also thought that given that this is a black man, he would have like just kind of blended into the neighborhood. It was someone who was
Right.
familiar with the neighborhood, who would have
Yeah.
known where to go to kind of catch them off guard, and like so it's thought that this guy just didn't look weird.
Well, also, like,
Didn't look suspicious.
I've realized through my own criminal activity in public that, like, if you don't look like you're doing anything wrong, people won't really notice you.
Yeah,
Like, if you look around all suspiciously and shit, then yeah, you're gonna get noticed, but if
yeah,
you're just, like, chilling, nobody really cares.
yeah.
Nobody really sees you.
It's it's also theorized that he, like I said, pulled a gun on them quietly because that would be a
Right.
way to get them to get in the car without a big, like, messy abduction, right?
Totally. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's probably the only way these girls would have because they know not to otherwise.
Yeah.
Um, so similar, like other bodies, she was wet, um, which is like, oh my god, in 2 hours you had time to give her a shower. Like this is insane.
Yeah, like, what the
um,
that's what I was thinking, like, what the fuck? How is this happening, you know?
yeah, she was wet, but she was on dry ground, so she was dumped at the site she was found. A woman's loafer was also found near her that they thought was accidentally dragged from the car as he like pulled her body out. It was just something else from like another victim.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Or just was there.
Mhm.
There were also similar synthetic green fibers on her, which is like they're found on almost all the bodies.
Okay.
And one person who analyzed the fibers said they may have come from a bath mat, which would make sense if they're getting dunked in the bath or the shower,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that
um,
does make sense.
or a towel, maybe even.
Yeah.
Um, so only after this fourth murder did cops start to, I'm going to say, barely give a shit. Not even a full shit, just like a little bit.
Yeah.
And they kind of just admit they're connected slightly. According to families, they accused all of these girls of going off with their boyfriends, of running away, even though, again, some of them are missing for like a minute, but they find a way to be assholes to the family, even in a short period of
Mhm.
time.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, did your daughter go off with her boyfriend? Stuff like that.
Right.
They even called the 10-year-old victim's clothing provocative.
Oh
And they were
my
like,
god.
and she was wearing her school gym uniform, just for the record. Not that anything a 10-year-old could be wearing could be called that.
Right.
Darlenia, or no, sorry, Brenda Faye Crockett. But she was wearing a gym uniform,
Wow,
just for the record.
those sexy school gym outfits, like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
On those children, on those
Or
10-year-olds.
sorry, that was the 13-year-old.
Oh,
But
I'm sorry,
still,
the 13-year-old.
uh, still,
Still.
there's this tone of judgment and, of course, adultifying and sexualizing young black girls, which is not
Mhm.
like news, right? This is very
No.
common. And finding a way to judge the parents and victims who, by all standards, like I said, were like super mega upstanding and didn't have any. There's no factual basis to like judge them, and the cops are like, "Oh, we're gonna find a way, or we're gonna
Yeah.
make it up."
Yeah.
Um, so
Jesus
it's all
Christ.
it's also thought that the very strained, which is a euphemistic word there, relationship between this community, which is a black one, and the cops led to people not calling in tips or not talking because,
Right.
again, there should have been more witnesses.
Right.
But it's thought also people just didn't want to fucking talk to the cops.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So a few weeks after Nino Moshe's murder, 18-year-old Brenda Woodard disappeared after getting dinner with a classmate after taking a night class for her high school.
Mhm.
She was last seen riding the bus home, so she did take the bus, but she never made it home. So essentially, she went missing on the walk from the stop to her house.
Wow, okay. Fuck.
Yeah. Her body was found the next morning, a kind of similar timeline for this guy. And unusually, she had been sexually assaulted and strangled, but also stabbed. She's the only one who was stabbed.
Oh, ugh.
Um,
I wonder why.
yeah, she also had a ton of defensive wounds, and it's thought that she may have been subject to more violence because she fought back a lot.
Mhm.
She was a bit older, right? And so I think it makes sense. Yeah.
Right.
It also looked like her body had been thrown in a hurry out of a car. So
Mhm.
it kind of is thought that maybe this guy was like rattled by this and like
Mhm.
she fought back more than he thought.
Right, so that could have been why.
Tons
Okay. Yeah.
There's tons of green fibers found in her clothing. There's foreign hairs from both a white man and a black man found on her. Although some people say the white man hairs could be from cops poorly handling the scene, which maybe.
Not at all surprising if that was the case.
Yeah. So in her pocket, in Brenda Woodward's pocket, the killer left a note.
What?
And this shit is wild. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Note to the cops. And the note is in Brenda's handwriting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's thought that he made her copy a pre-written note that he wrote and gave to her and made her copy.
Ugh.
So they wouldn't have his handwriting.
Okay.
And here's what it says. Quote, "This is tantamount to my insensitivity to people, especially women. I will admit the others when you catch me if you can!" Exclamation point. And he signed it Freeway Phantom with a dash between free and way.
Ew, what an idiot. Okay.
Yeah. So people have analyzed this note a lot, and everyone agrees that the word tantamount tells you a
Mhm.
lot about him because he's trying to sound smart, but he's not actually using the word correctly.
Right. Right.
Because it kind of means more like of equal value or like equivalent, but he's saying
Mhm.
like he's using it more like it's like or it's akin to.
Mhm.
Um, or it's not even that. He's kind of saying like this is representative of or symbolic of. Sorry, grammar nerd. It's a great word, tantamount, but he's not using it correctly.
Right. No, he's not at all.
But because some of her friends, of Brenda's friends, not all of them, but just a few of them, said that she did take rides from strangers in the past, the police are like, oh, boom, that's all they need to be completely dismissive about her case. They call her promiscuous. They like spread literally the police are like spreading rumors that she's promiscuous because she got in a few cars, maybe.
It's crazy how they will
And
do literally
yeah,
anything. They'll work so hard to not just
yeah,
have to work at their job. They'll work 3
yeah,
times as hard as they need to not do the one thing they're supposed to do. They're like petulant little children. They just, like,
yeah.
refuse to do the right thing. It's
And to
insane.
sexualize and victim blame a black girl.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they will and they'll do it anyway if there's no evidence of anything. So all they need is the tiniest little kernel of any made up bullshit and they're like, oh, there it is. Right?
Right.
She's promiscuous. So 10 months later, in September 1972, the last known victim officially ascribed to the Phantom, 17-year-old Diane Williams, is found the following day after she disappears on the side of the freeway. Like, they're all on these like little grassy embankments.
Mhm.
Um, and she had gone to her boyfriend's house the night before, but she did get on the bus, according to the boyfriend, who we do not suspect.
Mhm.
And she essentially goes missing, just like Brenda Woodward, from the bus stop near her house to her house.
Okay.
She had been strangled. Genetic evidence was found on her clothing from the sexual assault. Police chose not to test this semen because they said, oh, it was from her boyfriend.
Oh, they just knew that somehow.
Um,
They just psychically
yeah,
knew or were spying
and
on her ahead of time. Like, what the fuck?
And the boyfriend emphatically says, like, I saw her the night before, but we didn't have sex. So it's definitely not from me. And they were like, nope, it was. We're not testing it.
What the
um,
fuck?
Oddly, her shoelaces were missing.
That is weird.
So a lot of these girls have like just very random items missing. And it's thought that these might be like classic souvenir type things, right?
Mhm.
Or just his carelessness and like putting their outfits back together as well. Um, so the killer also called Diane's family saying, I killed your daughter, and then hanging up.
Oh my god.
Yep. This guy is horrifying. And it's a very consistent MO. Like, it's just clearly the same person. It's not ambiguous.
It's like the Gilgo Beach dude, like, calling the families and shit. Why? These guys are
Yeah.
so sadistic.
Yeah, it really adds an extra layer of evil when you want to, like, torment the families as well.
Yeah.
So it's unclear how much the police ever actually investigated, but they basically came up with absolutely nothing, despite a lot of evidence of all kinds, including genetic evidence in this case. Granted, it's the early 70s, but they've never really given a shit. The FBI took over the investigation in 1974 and came up with one not that good suspect named Robert Askins. Basically, he was a rapist who had a few convictions for the kidnapping and rape of other women, but there was no link between him and the Freeway Phantom murders, and he was kind of a scapegoat suspect. They never convicted or arrested for this, but they were just like, yeah, it was probably him.
So
They
they
kind of
were
did
like,
that.
"Oh, we've done enough. We kinda pointed to somebody who might have potentially been a person, maybe.
Yeah,
We're just gonna leave
yeah,
it there."
yeah, and he was like, "Oh, the black man who had, like, sexual violence crimes," and so it's like, "It's probably him," and it's like, "Well, no, it's a totally different MO, and, like, he killed adults, not children."
Right,
Um,
right.
so yeah, there's no evidence. Some also have raised the idea that the Green Vega gang may be responsible because this was a gang who, at this exact same time, was kidnapping and raping women in that area and kind of on like a crime spree. But besides proximity, there's no evidence to link them.
Yeah, it seems
And
weird
I,
that they'd have these, like, sending these letters and, like, "I did this," and not saying, like, "We,"
mhm.
this feels like an
Everyone thinks it
individual.
was one person and not a gang. And
Yeah.
basically, the only reason they're linked is because one of their members tried to falsely confess to the Freeway Phantom murders, but it's like definitively a false confession. And he later admitted that it was. So he was just trying to use it as a
Wow.
bargaining chip to get like something, whatever,
Dumb.
to fuck with police. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are a couple other victims I won't get into for time's sake, but that might be the work of the Phantom. So it's unclear when he stopped.
Okay.
But there are just like little things with those that make them less definitive. Like one girl who's like an 18-year-old girl was like shot, for example. But people
Okay.
have also said, well, that's not impossible if we think he was getting them in the car with a gun. He has a gun, right?
Right, right. She could, and she's old
Um,
enough that maybe she was fighting back a bit more, you
yeah.
know.
And there's that one time he stabbed someone. So his MO is
Right,
not always consistent.
right,
But it's not clear that he stopped. And again, it's not even clear because no one's investigating. So he could
right,
have, kept going.
right,
But
right.
in 2009, just going to jump right ahead. You
Okay.
ready to lose your mind?
Oh god.
Um, the DC cops admitted after journalists, because the only people who have done investigating this are like amateur crime sleuths and the
Mhm.
families and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And because of their poking and prodding, the DC cops are forced to admit publicly that they lost the entire case file
Oh my fucking god. So this will never
for the
ever
Freeway
be solved.
Phantom.
This will never
Yeah.
be solved because of the
And
cops, period, straight up.
what's mind blowing is that that included semen samples.
Jesus
That
fucking
included
Christ.
genetic fucking evidence of this guy, who again very likely could be dead, but like we still could have used genetic genealogy to figure it
To, like,
out,
figure out
right?
who it was, yeah. What
Yes,
a bunch
yes.
of worthless sacks of crap, dude. To do that is
Commenting on this, amazing move, one of the detectives said, quote, "Maybe it's over there in some box and we haven't stumbled across it. Who knows?"
stumbled
I
across
like
it
that
is, like,
quote.
the perfect way to put it, because that's literally what it would be, is like a
Meh,
stumbling into
like
anything.
you just could not sound more like you gave less of a shit. He's literally like, "Maybe it's somewhere. I don't know. We're not looking."
We're not
Like,
really looking for it. If we find it, that would be fine. Like, he's a oh my
yeah.
god. That's
Yeah.
infuriating.
Uh, yeah. Yeah, wow, it really is. And again, it's like I actually think there was evidence, even if this guy's dead, like I said, there was evidence to solve this because there was DNA.
If there's DNA, all they have
But
to do is put it in a fucking, I mean, I
yeah,
guarantee you this guy has a
yeah,
record.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
guarantee you.
Oh yeah,
Or a
for sure.
family,
Or,
you know?
mm-hmm. So it's really frustrating.
Yes.
Despite despite their obvious give a shit attitude, they kind of half-heartedly claim that this investigation is still open, to which I'm like, is it?
Is it? Like,
Uh,
how could it be? Just close it and take the L. Like, what the
yeah,
fuck?
yeah. Admit you're
Ay,
not
ay,
trying.
ay. Yeah.
Actually probably won't close it just so they don't have to give over like records or something, which they don't have
Yeah.
them anyway. So,
Yeah.
so
Ugh,
but they put out there is an official 150K reward for information, um,
that's a
but
lot.
that is about it. Yeah, obviously you caught on by now that this is still unsolved.
Yeah.
Victims' families have been very vocal about the fact that their loved ones, daughters, sisters' murders were uh, pretty much never taken seriously by cops from the get. They were never given any urgency. The families have even, several of them have even raised the possibility, just like in the Atlanta child murders, that maybe this was a cop,
Yeah.
or someone who had a connection, and there could be some kind of cover up, or a cop could be involved in a group of people responsible. So I
Right.
think whether or not that's true, they are so distrusting that that's where they're going, and I think that's fair.
I think it's fair too,
Um,
given the circumstances.
yeah. That being said, like a white cop, for instance, I think would have been more noticed.
Agreed.
Um,
Agreed.
Probably,
Yeah.
but who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
But my final thing I'll say is check out the very brand new podcast just came out, just wrapped up actually a week or so ago, called the Freeway Phantom, which I binged for this. It's a very, very good. It's done by Tenderfoot, the same people who did Up and Vanished.
Oh, nice.
It's really, really good. And they probably did the most thorough investigation, much more so than the cops did. Most thorough investigation ever on this. And they actually, the podcast matched the police reward of 150K. So now it's 300K.
Holy shit. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they just
And
need to get the word out about that, because if somebody knows, they're gonna turn somebody in for $300,000.
yeah, I mean, or maybe it'll be a thing where, in a few years, someone will be like, oh, I think my dad was it, or,
Yeah,
something like,
that
who
happens.
knows? But
Yeah.
check out the podcast. It's really thorough. You hear about every victim and like in way more depth, and the families, and the neighborhood. And also they go really into depth into like, the epidemic of people not giving a shit about missing Black women and girls.
Yeah.
So
It is an
yeah,
epidemic for sure.
still is. Yep.
Oof. Wow, that's fucking crazy, dude. It
Yeah.
is very alphabet murders too, very much.
Uh-huh. Very much. But that's a very well known true crime case.
Yeah, and this is
And
very
this
much
this is
not.
not.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
weird how that works.
Hmm.
Okay, well, I'm gonna just roll right along, continue rocking down the highway, as it were. Oh, I'm so
Nice.
old. All right, this is
Yeah, there was like a good classic rock, like
there
life
was.
is a highway joke or something in there.
Yeah, you're not
Yeah, it can
see.
make it really bad.
Yeah, it was awful. I'm sorry.
Mm.
In any case, I'm doing Roger Kibbe, the I-5 Strangler. And I chose him before realizing that this all takes place in California. So even when I don't mean to do what I always do, I still do it. I'm very much a California centric case coverer, and I have no shame
Mhm.
in that. So there it is.
It's okay.
All right, so we're going to start with when he was born. Roger Kibbe was born in 1931 in Chula Vista, which is down kind of near San Diego,
Mhm.
like very near San Diego. Actually, I think it's in San Diego, sort of. Uh,
Yeah.
he had a very shitty home life. He had siblings. He was the least favorite of the kids. His mother liked him least. And she used to beat him and treated him very poorly compared to his other siblings. Now, he had a father who loved him, but his father was gone for much of the beginning of his life because he was in the war. And so when his father came home from the war, Roger was waiting for him on the front steps. But instead of like hugging him, he asked him, "Are you my dad?" Like, because he didn't know, because he was so
Oh,
young, that he didn't even remember
yeah.
him, which is really sad. So his mother was super overbearing. And as a result, Roger was super meek and really quiet. He was very non-confrontational. He hated his mother, but he never like talked back to her. He never, fought with her. He always just did what she told him to do. But
Mhm.
secretly, deep down, he really fucking hated her, and he really thought that she hated him, which it kind of sounds like she did, and his dad thought she did too.
Yeah.
You know. So anyway, he did weird shit to get his anger out instead of fighting with his mom. As a youth, he would steal women's clothing from clotheslines. He would cut them up in these weird long strips and then bury them.
That is some serial killer shit.
Yes,
Like
it is.
right there.
Ding, ding, ding. Yes,
Ooh.
it is. The next thing I wrote was, "This is important for later." It also shows
Feels
his.
serial killer-ish to me.
It does,
Like,
right? And it shows like a weird
yeah.
fixation on and hatred of women from this like really young
Mhm.
age. Now he
Yeah.
also did other things to try to take out his anger. He started peeping on women, so he was a peeping Tom. And by the time he
Okay.
was a young adult, he'd been arrested multiple times for peeping, burglary, theft, petty shit. Nothing violent, but just lots of like weird and unnecessary shit. And one time he did get caught stealing women's clothing, which his mother found out about, and that was really bad for him.
Oof.
Yeah. So he never did anything violent, mind you, but these things added up and he did spend a lot of time in and out of jail. Never like prison or anything, but petty, petty shit.
Okay.
Once he finally kind of, I won't say got on the straight and narrow, but he, kind of tried to get his life together, and he married a woman and they had a daughter. And then pretty quickly he landed himself back in jail and she left him. And he never really saw his daughter after that until she was like 17 and had her own kid. And even then, like they didn't really rekindle their relationship very much. But essentially she grew up without him around at all. Like the mother was basically like, I don't want you around her. And being like the meek kind of guy that he was just like, okay, just did whatever. From there, he moved to kind of central Northern California, a little bit south of San Francisco. And he met and married another woman named Harriet, who was very much like his mother, very overbearing, commandeering, very strong willed, not very nice.
Mm-hmm.
She would give as good as she got, and Roger never really gave anything, but she certainly did, So another basically married his mother. Now, during this time, Roger had a long list of shitty jobs, but he was also a skilled woodworker and furniture builder. And he was a
Mm-hmm.
furniture builder for most of his adult life. Now, whether or not it was successful is another story. He definitely had varying degrees of success, but this is what he did. And also, super weirdly, he was an avid skydiver.
Oh,
That's
okay.
weird, right? For this like
Did not
meek
expect that.
guy. Yeah. Yeah. So he's like a really paradoxical dude. He was really quiet, really kept to himself, but then he enjoyed skydiving, which is super fucking
Okay.
weird.
It's also not a common like hobby in general. You're like, what? Okay, that's what you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like that's how you get your kicks. Like it's fucking I would never,
Sure.
but whatever. He and Harriet went into business together. They started like a furniture company, but the business went under pretty quickly, and soon neither of them had a steady income. But somehow they continued to survive. And before he married Harriet, but after his first divorce, kind of when he was getting his shit together before he met Harriet, because he did kind of stay out of trouble once he met her. Like he wasn't really in and out of jail anymore. And people think it was because he went and lived with his brother for a while. And his brother happened to be a homicide detective, which is,
What?
yeah, his brother was a
That's
fucking
so random.
homicide detective. And people think that Roger learned from him, like would just ask
Mm,
certain questions without kind of tipping off his brother as to why he was asking them and got a lot of information from him. So kind of an interesting little thing there. And
okay.
while married to Harriet in 1977, Roger was apparently tired of his petty crimes and wanted a little bit more. So he placed a bogus ad in like a journal, not a journal, but like a work, what the fuck is it called? He placed like a help wanted ad in a paper
Yeah.
in San Francisco, saying he was looking for an assistant, like somebody like an office woman for his construction business. Now he didn't have a construction business and he didn't work in San Francisco, but he put this ad out with the intention of finding and murdering a woman. He met
Okay.
21-year-old Lou Ellen Burley. She answered the ad. She was desperate for money. She needed a job. So she met him outside of a construction site and he said to her, "Oh, yeah, this is my construction site." It wasn't, but let's interview in my
Yes.
van because my office is under construction. These men didn't know,
Okay.
but they also didn't say anything. Like the construction workers were just like, there's a man and a woman talking. It has nothing to do with us. So to her, it looked like he worked there. To them, it looked like two random people. And, to Roger, this was like perfect, right?
Yeah.
So they go into the van and have an interview. Now, Roger was missing some teeth at this point. He was really fucking creepy, but he didn't do anything to her at that point. He it just,
Right.
so she was like, okay. He offered her a
Just
job.
being creepy.
Yes, yes. The whole situation, like, let's have a job interview in my van. Like, what the fuck?
Uh-uh.
Go to a
No,
coffee
don't get in the
shop.
van.
Like, what the
Don't
fuck?
go in there. Yeah.
Right? So fucked up. So he asked her to come back the next day, offering her a large sum of money to assist him. Llewellyn went home and told her boyfriend, this guy gives me a really bad feeling. Can you come with me to this next interview? Very unfortunately, her boyfriend was not available. So she went by herself and again got in Roger's van. Now, this time he drove her to a remote area, likely becoming very cold towards her and not answering any of her questions. And I'm sure she was terrified. He ended up taking her out near Lake Berryessa, which is my old stomping grounds, and he raped
Mm.
and strangled her and then dumped her body in the brush.
So this is the second notorious murder to happen at Lake Berryessa that I know of.
Yes, yes, and this guy
Because we've
dumps a
got the
few bodies
Zodiac.
there. This guy dumps a
Okay.
few I know, I was
Oh
thinking that
shit.
too. I was like, "Dude, I wonder how many bodies were in the water when I've gone swimming in that lake," and I
That lake
guarantee you it's
must be
more than
haunted.
0. Yeah.
It's
Well,
gotta be haunted.
so a big part of Lake Berryessa used to be a town, and they moved the town
Mhm.
over and then flooded it. So there's like buildings and shit under
Mm,
there. I mean, it could not be more haunted.
interesting.
Yeah, fucking
For
terrifying.
sure.
And my ass used to go fucking swimming in there, just like no,
I swam
not a
there
care in the
one
world.
time
Did you?
in high school. Yeah, it's gross.
Dude, yeah, I mean, it was like
It's
senior
kinda
ditch
gross.
day we would go there. It's disgusting. It's where murders happen. So,
Murder water, yeah.
yeah, fucking nasty. So anyway, he dumped her at Berryessa. Her boyfriend pretty immediately reported her missing, and there were a bunch of witnesses who saw Roger with her before she died. But there was no evidence in his van, and these people could not pick him out of a lineup because this guy is just such a
Mm,
fucking white dude. Like, if you were
yeah,
like,
generic looking.
like draw a picture of a white dude, you'd fucking draw this guy. I swear to God, there's like nothing
Yeah,
about
yeah.
him. I mean, his face is a little ratty, but like not really. There's nothing about him that really stands out. Now, if you Google him, you're gonna see a grizzled old man with like a really long beard. Obviously, that's not what he looked like when this was happening. So,
Right,
he
right.
was younger and looked kind of normal. Um, anyway, so they couldn't find her body. They didn't have evidence in his van, and nobody could definitively pick him out. So they let him go. That was it. And he just denied ever having anything to do with her disappearance. And he was like a stonewaller. So when the cops would try to talk to him, he would deny and then he would just shut down. It was like he could look right through them like they weren't even there. And that was kind of his whole
Yeah.
thing, was like just avoid, avoid, avoid. He always avoided confrontation with his mother, with his wife, with the cops. That's just what he did. So as far as we know, he didn't kill again for another 10 years. Llewellyn went
Oh,
missing in September 1977, and his next victim, Laura Hedick, wasn't murdered until 1986. So,
that's unusual, I feel like.
yes, yes, especially considering how this ramps up from here. It's very, very interesting that he took this long of a break. And some people believe that he didn't. But the interesting thing is, so many of his victims were found um, and reported missing, and there's not that many that they've been able to like really even possibly tie him to. So it really does seem like he was. And here's the other thing: he did take time off from like going to prison for petty theft. He did stop stealing women's clothing. He did kind of do things in like a cycle or a pattern, and it's like every time he started criming again, he was a little worse. You know what I mean? So it almost feels like he
Yeah,
would scratch the itch and then wait. Like,
yeah, and then, like, get out of his system and then get worse with every, like, round.
yes, exactly. So that could have been what this was, and then once he opened the floodgates this next time, that it was just on, you know?
Yeah,
So so Laura Hedick was a 21-year-old woman. She was in the sex trade. She was working in Modesto, which is like Central California. And Roger offered her a large sum of money to go on a ride with him and, of course, have sex with him. And she wasn't with her boyfriend when she met him, but she was like, "My boyfriend is like, at this hotel, just come there, get a hotel room, and we can do that." And Roger like offered her drugs. Both she and her brother, or I keep saying brother instead of boyfriend. What is going on? I swear to God, there's no Freudian slip there. I don't know what's happening. Um, Anyway, so she and her boyfriend were at this hotel. They both had a drug issue. And I say boyfriend, which I should say sex trafficker, really is what he is. He's,
yeah, yeah,
but they were both addicted to drugs. Roger was like, "Hey, I know where to get some drugs. Let's go pick them up." So the boyfriend was like, "I'll wait at the hotel for you guys. You go get the drugs, come back to the hotel. We'll all do the drugs. You guys can have sex, and then you'll give us some money." So
yeah.
the boyfriend waits by this hotel and waits and waits and waits. And the next morning at 9 a.m., he finally calls his mother asking her to report Laura missing because he didn't want to get in trouble. Finally, when police did track this boyfriend down, he lied to them about the circumstances of what happened to her so they could never track down Roger. So this guy saw Roger, spent time with him, reported his girlfriend missing, and then because he was afraid of getting in trouble for drugs, he refused to actually tell them the truth, and they never found Roger, right?
Mhm.
What Roger did was rape, strangle, and dump Laura's body. So, same
Oh my
thing that he had
god.
done 10 years previously.
Okay, he's back.
Yes. He was pulled over shortly thereafter and was questioned by police for looking so much like the sketch that the boyfriend gave them. So the boyfriend did give them a sketch of what the guy looked
Okay.
like. but he didn't really say he was at this hotel. This, you know what I mean? Like, he basically painted himself out of the picture of what happened. And by doing that,
Yeah.
made it very difficult. Even so, they were like, hey, you look like the guy in the sketch. And also, hi, he had been suspected of murdering somebody else. They still just let him go. They're like, he's like, no, I'm just a white guy. Any white guy looks like me. It could be anybody. And they're like, you know what, sir, you're right. Have a nice day. And they let him go.
You're like looking at his. I'm picturing a cop looking at his ID and be like, you know what? You are white. That's true. Never
Yeah,
mind.
yeah, you are white. That's true.
We
Uh,
like how we like how white this guy is. Let's let him go.
yeah, he didn't do anything wrong.
No, no.
So his next victim was also in 1986. So again, a bit of a spree, or at least like a rapid fire type thing. This victim was not a sex worker. Not that it really matters, but I mention that because I do want to show that he didn't really have a pattern. He definitely did kill sex workers because they were easy targets, but he didn't, that wasn't like his
It's not a
only
consistent
thing. No,
MO.
no,
Yeah.
it's not at all. So there was a woman named Stephanie, I think Brown. She was out with friends. Actually, her friends called her because they needed her to pick them up because like their car had broken down. So she dropped them off, and they were like, "Well, if you wait, we'll come home with you. You know, we're off work or whatever." And she was like, "No, no, no, I'm just gonna go." So they gave her directions how to get home, and they told her take the 5 north, and you'll get home. Now Stephanie accidentally took the 5 south. And we don't know exactly what happened from here, but it's possible she kind of had an older car and she may have broken down on the side of the freeway, the 5 freeway. Shortly
Mm.
thereafter, she was found raped and strangled in a drainage ditch in San Joaquin County with a pair of scissors next to her, and her hair was cut off, and I believe her clothing was also shredded. If that
Oh,
sounds.
that's a very specific MO. Yeah.
Yes, yes, her clothing was cut into ribbons, much like the clothing that Roger would steal in his youth. So we're
Mm-hmm.
starting to see more patterns, right?
Yeah.
And he allowed, Laura's boyfriend to see him. He grabbed Stephanie off the side of the road. So he's definitely ramping up, getting bolder, potentially getting dumber, taking more risks.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing says this more than his next murder, which is absolutely insanely bold. It's
Okay.
August 17th, 1986. Charmaine Sabra and her mother Carmen broke down on the side of the 5 freeway. They don't have a phone, they don't have any way of getting, help. And Roger Kibbe pulls up next to them and offers to give them a ride. But he says,
Mm.
I only have 2 seats in my car, so only one of you can come with me. And he did. He had a 280Z, like a Datsun, which is like a sports car at the time.
Right. Right.
And uh, so only 2 seats, which is super convenient. So Charmaine's mom,
Mm-hmm.
Carmen, is like, I'll go with you. You can take me to a payphone. So he does. He takes her to a payphone. It's literally like the middle of the night. It's like 3 a.m. She calls her son. She calls another family member. Nobody answers the phone. So reluctantly, she gets back in the car because the guy's creepy as fuck. Roger's creepy. And
Yeah.
but he drives her back. He drives her back to her daughter, and she's like, this man is safe. He's being a good Samaritan. He's helping us. So then he says,
Yeah.
why don't I give one of you a ride home since obviously I can't fit you both in my car?
Yeah.
Charmaine goes with him. Carmen sends Charmaine home. She sends her own daughter
Oh my God.
unknowingly away with this man
Well, and her
because,
ride with him just went fine. So
yeah,
she's
he took her
thinking
right
it's
where he said he
okay.
would, brought her right back. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what he's doing is
Oh,
gaining her trust. And that's what he did with
wow.
Ellen, where he let her go after the first day. He gained her trust, which was a little
Yeah.
game for him. He was having a good time. And it's kind of
Oh
the
my
same thing
God.
with the boyfriend. He's gaining the boyfriend's trust. The boyfriend's like, you seem cool. You can take my girlfriend. It's part of his thing, it's part of his game. Carmen falls asleep in the car. She wakes up the next morning at 9 a.m. with a cop knocking on her window. He takes her home, or he actually lets her call her son, who comes to pick her up and has no idea where Charmaine is. She never came home. So Carmen reports Charmaine missing. And the cops normally would be like, she's an adult and it hasn't been 24 hours. We're not going to report it. But because of these recent murders, they're on
Yeah.
alert. So they put
I hope
out,
so.
yeah, they start looking for her. Her body was later found, but again, they don't have, anything. And she was strangled. She was raped, and I believe that she may have been the first one that was actually strangled using some type of cord. And
Like a
her
ligature, yeah.
yeah, and her clothing was cut, I believe, and her hair was cut. So he's, like, adding little things each time, right? He's
Mhm.
evolving as a murderer because this is where he's really taking off and doing these murders.
Yeah,
Now, the next
yeah.
the next victim was Catherine Kelly Quinones, 25 years old. She was raped, strangled, and dumped right near Lake Berryessa's Pope Creek Bridge. So bad. The more he killed, the less he talked to his wife. The two continued to try to work together until their business fell apart. They didn't really interact much besides that. He would be gone all night and she like wouldn't care or wouldn't know. She would care, but she just didn't know where he was. And again, he was such a coward to her that even though she was with him when he was questioned in that very first murder, she never thought that he had it in him and was never concerned
Yeah.
about it. And his brother, the same thing. His brother knew he'd been, questioned in that first murder and was like, yeah, fucking right. My like bitch ass little brother, no fucking way.
Oh my
Hmm.
god.
Yeah.
Wow.
So here his spree slowed a little bit. I don't really know why. He went on the run at some point after the cops interviewed him about one of the missing women, but he came like right back before they ever knew he was gone. And his wife, even knowing this, still didn't suspect him. She just thought that he was such a coward that he was
Oh,
afraid to like talk to them, so he ran away. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So at some point after Stephanie, after he murdered Stephanie, he picked up a woman named Carol, who he raped and then dumped out of his car. He didn't kill her. We don't know why.
Okay.
She reported it and he denied it. And cops were like, we think this is our guy. He's a rapist. He's probably a murderer. They had no evidence. And so they're like, fuck it. We're still going to go after him. We just need Carol to testify. And she had bailed. She was just gone. She
Ugh,
fucking disappeared.
so
So
close.
here's like the third time, right?
Yeah.
His next victim was in 1987, and she was 25-year-old Karen Finch. Not a lot known about her, but she did have cuts in her clothing and hair. And she did also have bits of duct tape in her hair, which showed that the killer was getting
Okay.
sloppier and also giving more insight into his MO. So, what he would do is he would
Yeah.
tie them up with the cord, he would gag them with the duct tape, he would strangle them with the cord after raping them, and then he would cut the duct tape out of their hair and take everything with him so there was nothing left over. But he got sloppy, so now we have the duct tape, right?
Okay.
She was also the only victim who was stabbed. And we
Oh,
don't know why, but she could have fought back. Now, his last
okay.
known victim was 17-year-old Darcy Renee Frankenpole. She was a runaway from Seattle working in the sex trade to make ends meet. And when her body was found, she also had leftover duct tape on her body, but she also had rope fibers left behind and also some carpet fibers. So
Okay.
police at this point were circling around Roger Kibbe. He'd been suspected of or tied to more than one of these murders, but they didn't have any evidence that would stick. They were watching him. This is at the point that he like ran away for a day or whatever the fuck he did.
Yeah.
They have a very good feeling that it's him, but they have zero evidence. His wife isn't helping. His detective brother doesn't believe he did it. So they're kind of just, treading water, waiting for something to happen. And very luckily, something did happen. In September 1987, Deborah Guffey was working the streets in Sacramento when she was picked up by Roger Kibbe, who she said was distinguished looking and had a nice sports car, talking about the Nissan Datsun, which
Okay.
the Datsun, which it was a nice car. I will give her that. He did the
Okay.
normal thing, but she fought back and started like screaming, and to the point where he actually like opened the door and like kicked her out of the fucking car because she was fighting so much. And as she fell out of
Yeah.
the car, cops were right there because they were trolling because they were patrolling and looking for him.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm. So they immediately arrested him for this assault, and she stuck around for them to press charges. And they knew they had their man. So now they search his car, and in his car they find a ton of stuff. But mostly, the most important thing they found was parachute cord that he would use to
Mm,
parachute.
there's a ligature.
You'd never guess what else he used it for, right? Again, they tried
Mhm.
to get his family to flip on him. His brother was like, "No way." He didn't do it. My brother's a coward. His wife like screamed at the cops because again, she's really confrontational and she was like, "You guys can get fucked. Like, get the fuck away from me." They thought because they still couldn't get him on the murders, so they're like, "Let's bait her into like picking a fight with him, and then he'll go kill somebody because he's mad at his wife." Because they think like when he was younger, he would steal the clothing when he was mad at his mother. Now that he's older, he would kill the
Ah,
women because he was mad at his wife. And so they're like, let's bait them into an argument by pissing her off and he'll go
interesting.
kill somebody. She didn't yell at
When you
him though, she yelled at them. So it didn't work.
Yeah, when you said the wife, like, yelled at the cops to get fucked, I was gonna say she's a regular Cindy there.
Yeah, she
She's
is.
got your energy.
She
Yeah.
does a little bit, yeah. So anyway, a quick recap on the killings. They started pretty simple with just rape and manual strangulation. Then we brought in the cutting that matched, the clothing cutting, the hair cutting, taking the duct tape out, using the paracords or the parachute cords. Um, what was the other thing? I guess that was it. Like the stabbing was really weird. So that might have been like a new thing he was going to do. And when they were searching, they did find Darcy's body. And on her body, they found fibers on her clothes, on like not her clothes, but like on her body. And then on her neck, they found rope fibers. And they ran tests against these fibers because they could do that back then. They didn't have the advanced DNA that they have nowadays, but they could, compare fibers. And the fibers on her body matched those in his truck, and the fibers
Mhm.
around her neck matched his parachute cords.
Okay.
So they got him on that.
There
Uh,
there it is.
there it is. So they were able to arrest him. So what they did was they arrested him and put him in jail for 8 months for the attack on Deborah. And then while he was in there, they continued to gather evidence on him. The craziest thing is
Okay.
even after they gave the evidence that they had against him to his brother still did not believe that he had done anything wrong. He still was just like, no fucking way. He didn't fucking do it. But this was enough. So they take him to court for the murder of Darcy, and he is found guilty. And he is given, I think, 25 years to life. Now, while he's in there, he asks to see his wife, Harriet. And while she's in there with him, he confesses to everything. Unfortunately, this couldn't be used in court because it was just, I don't know if they didn't record it or what, but she later said, like, yeah, he confessed to everything to me. It took until 2009 for him to willingly admit to the murders of the other women. I'm not sure why they couldn't prove it. I know there had to be DNA. But he did
Yeah.
finally confess and he was given 6 additional life sentences.
Ooh.
Yeah. Harriet visited him in prison the first couple of years and then stopped. She never divorced him, but she did move in with another man. His brother, the cop, the idiot detective, disowned him for ruining his, career as a homicide detective because wow,
Yeah.
embarrassing.
It's really embarrassing.
It
Yeah, what a
is.
good detective.
Yeah. And
Mm.
the most satisfying finale to this entire thing is that even though he was given life in prison without parole, and he did live to be 81 years old, he very well could have lived to be older were it not for his cellmate, 40-year-old Jason Boudreau, who told police or, the warden, whatever, guards, that he had spent a long time getting Roger Kibbe to trust him. And
Mm.
after he and Roger became friends, at 12:40 a.m. on February 28th, 2021,
Oh my
Jason
god.
Boudreau murdered Roger Kibbe in their cell. He stabbed him to death, which I don't hate that at all.
Not I mean, there would have been poeticness if he strangled him, but
Yeah,
I mean,
I know. And in fact, Jason Boudreau himself was in prison for strangling a woman to death in 2010. So
okay.
it's like
Well,
that's
he's kind of
even
a hypocrite, like
agreed. But he said he was an
yeah.
avowed Satanist and that he killed Roger so
Okay.
that his victims' souls could be released from his grip or whatever.
Hmm.
Like he had to kill Roger
Okay.
to release the victims. And I'm
I'm not
like,
sure that's part of Satanism, but
I think the guy might just be a little weird. I don't know. I have a
yeah,
feeling he's not
yeah,
all
yeah.
there.
He has some
Um,
ideas, yeah.
yeah, but Roger Kibbe was fucking shanked in prison and died at the age of
All right.
81. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no. He wasn't shanked. He was actually strangled. I'm so sorry. I
Oh,
had that written down
alright.
wrong. He was strangled, which is great.
Okay,
That's even
well,
better. That's even better.
I called it.
You did, and you were right, and I
Yeah,
apologize.
you really cannot, like, feel too bad about someone getting killed in the way that they killed a bunch of innocent people.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hard to feel bad, even if the guy who did it was, not, like, a great dude.
Yeah. Oh, God, I missed one victim. I apologize. In July 1986, her name was Barbara Ann Scott. She was 29. I don't have very much on her. I apologize for not including her. But those are the known victims. I think there were 8 of them, 8 known victims over 10 years, essentially. But yeah, I'm so sorry, he was strangled to death, which is so fucking much better, and died in prison. I hope he was really upset that his quote-unquote friend was, like, slowly choking him out. So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
And, it's also parallel in that he tried to get victims' trust and then sneak attack them.
I know,
So
right? I'm
it's
like,
also
bro,
parallel.
you got by your own shit, dude.
Taste your own
Dumb.
medicine. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, fuck
Yeah.
this guy.
Truly. Yeah. And
Eating
fuck the Freeway Phantom, whoever he is or was
is or
as
was.
well.
Let's hope
So,
was. Let's hope was, because obviously
yeah.
the cops ain't gonna do shit. So,
Yeah.
anyway, yeah. So there they are. Let's talk about next week because I'm really excited for what
Yeah.
I chose.
What
I
did you choose? It's a fun one.
It is, because it reminds me of, like, when I used to fight with my brothers and we would, like, want to fucking kill each other over dumb shit.
Mm,
And then this is just kind of the actualization of that. I am doing people who murdered or were murdered over video games.
okay.
Yeah, I'm
And I
feeling
think we
nihilistic.
might pepper in like the classic, like the video games made them do it kids as well. And like maybe more leaning towards ones where it's more solid, right? I think,
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
rather than just like a politician saying it.
Right. No, it's gotta be like they were fighting over a video game and then, like, somebody stabbed someone, or, like,
Yeah.
like, very, very cut and dry,
A,
no 2 ways
a
about
video
it.
game a video game took was a key core pivotal part of this murder.
Yes, and I think we may have done
Yeah.
a couple murders that fit this already, but there's sadly
Mhm.
a lot, so I think we're gonna be good. We're gonna be covered.
You already did, sadly, during our Parasites week, you did the kid who killed his parents over his Xbox being taken away,
That's what
so
I thought. I
I
thought I did that.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
okay.
I
It
looked
still
for
got
that.
covered. Yeah, because when you said that, I was like,
There's
"That sounds familiar."
there's other Xbox murders, though, don't worry.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure there are.
Yeah,
Oh, man,
yeah,
what a
it'll be
sad
fun.
world. Yeah. Alright, guys, thanks for listening, thanks for tuning in, thanks for liking, rating, and
Mhm.
reviewing, and joining us on all the social media platforms that you can find on our website or our Instagram. We love you all, we appreciate you, and until next week,
Stay
off our
Yes.
list.
Stefan.
Bye.
Okay. Alright. Oh, yeah.